Okay, several people have asked me about painting things white because, and I've read this too, where they'll say white is the toughest color to paint. Why is that? Because there's a couple of things. One thing is that white is the lightest colored paint that you can buy. So if you paint with shadows and highlights, well, what do you make your base color and your shadows with? It has to be something else. So there's a trick to it. And one thing I discovered was this is a really good source of reference. This is a book of photographs of European enactors. I think they're from the UK. And what I love about it is that you can tell, go backwards. Okay, you can tell, I can tell what the materials are that consist of, that the uniform consists of. You know, there are things like little badges. Some of them are metal plates. Some of them, though, are embroidered with metallic thread and pieces of cloth and things like that. And so this is a great reference source for that. And what I noticed was, if you look at white things, like this grenadier, for instance, he has white wool, white linen, white braid, white gloves and things like that. But because they're made out of different materials, they have slightly different colors. And this was my first experiment with that. This is a voltigeur, a French voltigeur, light infantry from the Peninsular War, and they had blue jackets. They had the green and yellow epaulets with their symbol. They were the skirmishers. But in the Peninsular War, they liked to wear these cavalry jackets, these short cavalry jackets made out of white wool. And so this figure would have white wool, white. They took a oilcloth. It was probably canvas that was rubbed with oil to protect their expensive shako hat. And it was white also. And white leather, what they did, if you read about it, they would take the white leather, it was like tanned or bleached to white, but then they would, for inspection, they would rub it with white pipe clay to make it really sparkle and to clean the leather. So it has a cooler, cooler colors in it, especially in the shadow areas. And I'll show you what I made. I made this little visual tool. It's like a white piece of paper with a hole in it. If I look for a shadow of that leather crossbell, and you can see now what color that shadow is. See how blue that is? Yeah. Then he has a white wool waistcoat, they called it. We call it a vest. If I move this to the shadow color of the waistcoat, you can see how brown that is. Okay? So this is the difference. So you can say there's warm white and cool white in terms of the hue of the white. And then, of course, there's light, medium, and dark. But that's what this was an experiment for. I wanted to wind up with a figure, and you can pass this around, where I could tell the difference between the white leather straps and white wool jacket and oilcloth on the helmet, etc. That's from 2004, so this is indestructible. You can pass that around.
It never says it. Interesting idea.
The other thing, like this guy has they were not issued with canned beans. So one of the popular things they did, they took a vegetable gourd and they hollowed it out and they put a cork in the top, and that was their water canteen. So he's going to have one of those hanging from his belt. I bought this figure. This is a new Pegaso Romeo, same company, I think. And he's really interesting. I saw one at the show. That's why I bought it. He has he built like a patio cover that he could attach to his backpack.
This is supposed to be Egypt.
Yeah. It's gonna look like that.
Yeah.
It's French ingenuity. He is like this is the Egyptian campaign, so their uniforms were kind of threadbare, and he's going to be weathered and aged and things like that eventually. But I think that's a great looking figure. So, on this figure, what I did was, I start with a base coat that is, it's either cool or warm. So things like white wool for the turnbacks on the coat, and now the waistcoat on this figure, he's going to have blue and white vertical stripes. So I figured I'm going to make that a little bit cooler, because it's got blue stripes. It's going to look cool anyway. Cool meaning temperature cool. And so that I'm starting with a cooler base coat. What else do I have there? And the trousers, the pants, these are like duck pants, they used to call them, and they were like the least expensive overalls that they would wear. Their dress uniforms probably had tight-fitting pantaloons, but this is a figure that's on campaign, so it's kind of threadbare. It has a patch on one of the knees and stuff like that.
How do you do your patches?
Huh?
How do you do your patches?
I don't know yet.
So I've heard like cigarette paper.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
But I was wondering what you would do.
The stitching on that?
Well, that's one.
Actually,
if you wanted to have it stitched,
yeah,
that's one thing. If you wanted to have it just ripped, yeah. I was wondering how were you going to blend in the other part that's still.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do holes, and you can put you can create little holes and with a little flap and things like that. You can do a lot of that with paint without sculpting anything. But I have done some cloth details and things like that with needle-tight epoxy putty tape. It's the green stuff. You mix blue and yellow and it comes out green, and you can make really tiny pieces. And it's got nice and tacky. It'll stick on there. This photograph, this is a close-up of the sapper and the engineer. It's a kind of a dark photograph, but you can see the differences really very easily. This is what it looks like from a distance, and look at the color. Look how blue that shadow is, and then look how brown that is by comparison. So to get there, the easy answer is how do you paint things white? The easy answer is, well, you don't paint them white.
When did you come up with that?
Huh?
When did you come up with that?
I don't know.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And it sure helps you focus in on the type of color you need.
I don't know. It might be from my childhood. Or it might be from art college. We used to do exercises in color and design. I think it was a freshman course. Today they would call it color theory. And you buy a Pantone book, Pantone is swatches of ink in hundreds of different colors. And then you do exercises, like you show two different colors, but then you cut a hole in an overlay, and depending on what the overlay is, the different colors look the same. Or you take two of the same color, you put a warm overlay on one side and a cool overlay on the other side, and the same color looks like different colors. And that's actually connected to this theory, because when you look at color on a white palette, it looks completely different, because your brain is telling you, is observing the different colors, the white of the palette and the color that looks much darker, and it's equating what that color actually is. And that's the whole magic of doing this stuff, because there's probably four or five different colors on that jacket, or one of these pirate shirts or something like that. But when you look at it, it reads like it. You can tell that's a white linen shirt, you know, and it's not very clean, you know, and it's weathered from the salt air and things like that if you're successful. And so, I made another visual aid. This is probably from freshman color and design class too. These are typical colors that I use for underpainting white things. This is sky gray. Now I happen to use Vallejo acrylic paint, but every company, you know, Testers, Humbrol, Tamiya, they all have similar tans and grays and things like that, and different values. So you can, it's really about the principle. This sky gray is a very neutral gray, so it will read as though it's a cool white base color. And you don't think this could, when you look at this on this white piece of paper, you can't imagine how that would actually read as white paint, as a white object. Same thing with, so this is what I would do to create a cool white base color and straps. And the only thing I would do for highlights is, that's when I use my tube of white paint. But even there, I don't use it right out of the tube. I generally cool it down a little bit or warm it up a little bit with a little yellow ochre or something like that. If time allows, after I've talked about the colors, using acrylic colors as an example, I've brought some oil paints, because to match these colors in oil paint, you can't go out and buy it that way.